Hello everyone and welcome back. We are picking up right where we left off here on the old 402. I finished stripping it down. All the bearings came out really nice and consistent. None of them were down to their bare metal. There's no gouging in the crank or anything like that. It looks really good. So this thing should respond really well to just throwing some new bearings in here, honing out the bores there and slapping some new rings in. And I mean, you saw how worn out that timing chain was there on the front. It's going to be just a different engine if we just did that alone compared to everything else we've got going on. But I called up the machine shop this morning. Unfortunately, they're not going to be able to get this thing in and turned around for me quick enough. So what I'm basically going to focus on right now is just getting this as clean as I possibly can. Going to try to hit it with a bunch of degreaser a number of times, just pressure wash it down a few times, basically just rinse and repeat until I can get it as clean as I possibly can. We're waiting on parts anyway, so that's pretty much all I can do right now. Gonna go ahead and get the galley plugs out, clean up down there, try to clean up on any of the other passages I can get access to as well, but still got the cam bearings in there I need to knock out and get those swapped out. So that's gonna be the name of the game here this morning. Hopefully the parts will show up around midday, and then hopefully we'll be able to start doing reassembly because we've only got about 4.5 days to get this thing rebuilt, get it back in the car, and get everything else taken care of and buttoned up before we gotta be to the track. So very, very short turnaround. Let's get to it. So I hit it with a couple of rounds of degreaser and a pressure washer and scrubbed on it a little bit. It's definitely better than it was, but she's still pretty grimy and gross. So I'm gonna go ahead and oil up these cylinders right quick, oil up the ball hone, get that going through here. Then I'll wipe everything down just in case there's any debris that comes out of there. Get that all cleaned up out of here, then I'll come through, air down the block, get it all dried out, start cleaning up on these mating surfaces, and hopefully my bearings will finally show up. Can start getting the crank back in here and start doing all of our fun checks. So I hit the first bank of cylinders here with the ball hone, cleaned them up, got a really nice pattern in all of them. Most of them cleaned up extremely well except for number 7 back here. And I think this is probably one of the ones that was stuck up. There's definitely a lot of rust staining in there. Now nothing catches a fingernail, you can't really feel any of it, so I try to get the hone back in this one, work it just a little bit more, see if I can get some more of that cleaned up out of there. But otherwise, the rest of them looked really nice. I'm gonna probably go ahead and do the other side as well, see if we got any rusty ones over there to work with. But so far, everything is looking pretty good. Still no parts as of yet, so we'll just keep moving on with what we can. So I ran the hone back through number 7 there again, and it really cleaned up nicely. So happy that came around, looks pretty dang good. So I came over here to the passenger bank, started on these. Battery died on me in the drill there when I got to number 2, so I need to finish that one up. The back 2 here cleaned up real nice. Number 4 right here is probably our worst cylinder overall. It's got a lot of that rust staining through a lot of the cylinder there, and way down at the bottom there, fortunately can't quite get it where the camera picks it up very well, but down at the bottom there was a little section where you could actually feel a little bit of it. And it cleaned up on it some, so I might try to get back in here and work on this one a little bit more. See if we can get this one to clean up like number 7 did. If so, I think we'll be in fantastic shape, but otherwise, I mean, this engine, you gotta remember, we're only gonna be running this for probably about 3-4 months at most. It doesn't need to be perfect. As good as we can get it for now is pretty much what we're aiming for, just to get us to the strip a couple of times, get us through the summer, and then the L78 will be going in. Now, if I can keep these bores as they are and keep this thing nice and clean, they make some really nice off-the-shelf forged pistons for this that are like the L78 dome style. So maybe we'll keep this block around, put that forged crank in here, get some of those nice off-the-shelf forged pistons, find something else to use this in. So for right now, not that critical, since we'll probably come back in here at some point in time and actually do this proper, get it to the machine shop, have them really clean this thing up. It's probably got a good bit of crud in there from sitting as long as it did down in all the coolant passages, stuff like that. But for what we're doing, it's going to be plenty good enough. So I finished honing number 2 and number 4 there. Worked a little bit more on number 4 since it was probably the worst of our cylinders altogether. Brought it back out, flushed it out again, so now I'm just going to kind of go through, dry off the block here, start cleaning up on all of our mating surfaces a bit. Doesn't look like parts are going to end up being here today, unfortunately. Not quite sure what the deal is, but FedEx is being FedEx with things. I did get some of the rust repair pieces for the back window there, so still waiting on a couple more things to come in for that. But at the moment we're at a standstill with the block, so pretty much just going to dry this thing off, get a little oil down those bores, keep them from flash rusting, and just kind of work on cleaning up surfaces, getting it prepped for reassembly, since that's about all I can do right now. So we're back again on the old 402. It has been a couple of days now. It is Wednesday of this week. It's been a bit of a circus trying to get parts on hand. FedEx really threw a wrench into things. They decided to deliver my cat food and some of my parts to the wrong address. They just took a picture of where it was delivered and they're like, here you go, it was delivered. And it's like, no, that's clearly not one of my garages. No idea where it was. It was none of my neighbors' garages. So that ended up eating all day of Tuesday trying to chase that down, figure that out. And they had no answers for me. And then apparently the neighbor that they delivered them to decided they were going to be nice enough to re-deliver them. They brought them over, but they just kind of threw them in the yard. They didn't come knock on the door or anything else, so I had no idea they were here. But we should have everything we need now for the engine, got the bearings and everything else. So in the downtime, I basically just like test fit the rings, made sure they were the right size. I've had it before where I ordered rings and they were the wrong ones. I was trying to degrease on the engine just a little bit better here and some things like that. Trying to see if I can maybe get some paint on this at some point, but it's pretty greasy still, so not sure it's going to stick the best. But I'm going to go ahead, probably spin this over. We're going to try to get that crank back in here. We'll measure out all the bearings, check our clearances as we go, check our end play and things like that. But we're just going to have to rush through this thing as fast as we possibly can. I've got the upper half of all the mains installed, just checking that all the oil passages line up. I have received bearings in the past where they didn't line up, so it's always worth double checking on that. I did measure out the thrust surfaces here on the back as well, just making sure that all of that was into spec for what we pulled out of here. So everything should be good to go. Gonna go ahead and get these all lubed up here. Got red line assembly lube. That's pretty much what I use exclusively most of the time. And this will be flat tappet, so I've got a bunch of specialized lube for that, which we'll get to later. But gonna go ahead and lube up all these tops. We'll set the crank back in here. We'll get a couple of the caps on here. I'll probably test the crank for run out, and then I'll probably get most of the caps checked for clearance as well, just to see what they're at. And don't know if I'll show you all of that, but probably just like one of the caps I'll leave off, and I'll show you what the plastic gauge reads. I've been speeding through some of this off camera just because I'm trying to get this thing done as fast as possible, but did leave the center out there so I can show you how it reads on the plastic gauge. I already did the front and the rear here. Those were probably around 1/1000 and a half, somewhere in that vicinity. Here for the middle, we're probably around, I want to say anywhere from 2 to 2.5, somewhere in that vicinity. Should be plenty good for what we're doing. I checked the end play on here and it's right around 7/1000 at most. That should be good to go. I checked for run out on the crank. Didn't measure anything over 1/2,000 on the dial gauge, so that should be fine as well. Gonna go ahead and just kind of finish buttoning up the bottom end here on the crank. Get all of that torqued down there, clean up on the plastic gauge, but everything's looking pretty good so far. So next up, probably get the piston and start cleaning up on those, getting the rings all ready to go in here and start putting the slugs back in the holes, but it's coming along pretty nicely. Hopefully I'll have this thing buttoned up here by the end of tonight. My back is kind of killing me, so I don't know if I'll get this installed in the car tonight yet, but we'll at least try to get the block fully assembled and ready to go. Got all the mains there torqued to spec. Everything moves nice and freely still. Gonna go ahead and start getting the slugs ready. Took a little break to get some food here, but things are moving along pretty well. I got the first round of slugs in here. For the seals, I'm using the Sealed Power E243K in 30 over, obviously. Picked those things up for dirt cheap. They were about 30 bucks for the whole pack. They're measuring out to right around 18,000, so doing pretty good on that. I did check all the connecting rod clearance on this bank here. Everything was right between 1/1000 and a half to 2/1000, so pretty tight, surprisingly enough. All the mains there, as I mentioned before, were right around the 2.5 mark, somewhere around 3, somewhere in that vicinity, but should be good to go. So, gonna go ahead and just knock out the other side here. I've got my degree wheel out to probably check on that cam. here shortly, make sure that that thing's ground correctly, but things are going together. It's just taking a little longer than I'd hoped. Had these pistons soaking overnight in some cleaner, hitting them up with just a nylon brush, stuff like that, trying to get all the ring grooves nice and clean, stuff like that. It takes a lot of time. I mean, you can see I'm not going super crazy on getting this thing cleaned up, but just the small little things that I can make sure are clean. Trying to just do a little bit of due diligence on those types of things, but everything seems to be going pretty good so far. Now, since I'm kind of rushing through a lot of this, I am doing a lot of things twice just to make sure I don't skip anything. So I just came back through here, double checked all the torque on both the mains and the connecting rods at this point, just to make sure that I didn't skip anything as I went. So that's the bad part about rushing. It's really easy to skip steps, so trying to make sure that I don't, just taking a little extra time here to just double check everything. So got all the connecting rods there to around 55-ish pounds. All the mains there are at about 100, 105-ish. I finished dropping all the pistons in over here on the passenger side bank. Everything went together really nicely. Measured out all the rings as I went. It's been very consistent, right in that 17, 18 thousandths range across the board here, so pretty happy with that. I did hit cylinder number 4 here with the ball hone a little bit more, trying to clean up on where all that rust was. It definitely cleaned up really nicely compared to what I first shown in there. I went and got an analog bore gauge and was just trying to read through there a little bit, trying to get a bit more precise than my digital was. And we get a variance in the fractions of a thousandth, like maybe a quarter to a third of a thousandth when you hit some of those rough spots there. So not bad. Definitely probably better than what it was, but that's by far our worst cylinder. And if that's the worst we're dealing with, I think we're in pretty good shape overall. Again, did not come through here and measure the connecting rods on the passenger side. I only did on the driver's side here for every single one. They're all in that 1,000th and a half, 2,000th range. Have no reason to believe there's going to be a difference over here to the passenger side. With how clean the crank looked and everything else, and the bearings looking as consistent as they were, should be pretty universal across the board just by going off of the driver's side bank there. So next up, probably just going to get the cam installed in here, get the degree wheel out, make sure that the cam's actually set up correctly. Yeah, and that'll probably end up doing it for tonight. It's raining outside, it's getting pretty late. I'll have to shuffle cars around to be able to get my engine or cherry picker back out here to be able to pick this thing off here, set it back down on my engine dolly. Because again, this engine stand here just really isn't meant for a lot of weight. Don't want to be putting the heads and stuff on here. It'll just be a bit too much. So that'll probably be it for tonight, but I'm pretty happy with the way this has turned out thus far. It has just been a quick, dirty, in your own garage, just quick rebuild here, and I've been able to do this for extremely cheap. I've just been trying to use the parts I've had on hand, deals I can find off Marketplace, Amazon, stuff like that. So if you're curious what I've got into this so far, the bearings here ended up just using the Summit bimetals because, again, this thing isn't going to be ran for that long. Don't really need to drop the money on tri-metals just yet. Should be fine for what we're doing. So maybe about 50, 60 bucks in bearings there. The cam bearings were probably around 40, just got Clevites for that. So about 100 bucks for bearings. Maybe I think they were 35 bucks for the ring pack off Amazon. Dirt cheap for those. The cam itself was another $30. Now for the timing set here, if you remember right, last year when I was ordering up parts for my L78, I ordered the billet Howard's set, the double. And for some reason, Summit sent me out the Howards, and then they sent me out their own. And it's the exact same part as the Howards one, so I ended up having 2 of these. And this is really meant for like the 502 blocks, but it'll work just fine here in the Mark IV. Should fit behind that timing cover without issues. So that's going to be a significant upgrade over what we had in here. And again, zero cost, free. In the heads, zero cost, because I already had everything on hand for those as well. So really cheap overhaul on this thing, and it's going to make a tremendous difference. So let's go ahead and get this cam knocked out of here and call it a night. Got the camshaft here all lubed up and ready to go. Just used regular assembly lube there on the bearings themselves, but on the lobes, I'm using the Summit branded cam and lifter break-in assembly lube that they sell, and pretty much used a full tube here on the lobes. I'll probably use a whole bit more on just the bottom of the actual lifters when we get around to installing those. Try to give this poor flat tappet every possible chance she has at surviving break-in, since it's kind of a crapshoot nowadays, but hopefully luck will be on our side. So as you can probably guess, it is pretty late and I've been at this for a very long time, starting to make some boneheaded mistakes here. I just got done prattling on about that nice Billet Summit Performance timing set there and how I was going to use that in here and how it works just fine in these, even though it's meant for the 502 block. Completely spaced that, yeah, it works fine in here if you're running the roller cam and the thrust plate and everything else, but I'm just running the flat tappet in here, no thrust plate, and well, the bolt patterns are slightly different. So of course it's not going to work in here. Thankfully I had another set on hand, so I got that in here. As you can see, we got very little slack now on the chain. No more 10-15 degrees of variable valve timing with all the slop that we took out of the old set. And this alone would probably make a huge difference for how this engine ran before. It kind of boggles my mind that we didn't end up skipping teeth with how worn out that old set was and how well it kind of ran for what it was, but pretty wild. So definitely a good stopping point for the night. I did degree the cam there. With the tools that I've got on hand here, everything seems to check out correctly, so we should be good to go there. We'll pick this up bright and early in the morning, hopefully get this thing buttoned up, dropped back in the car, and we'll be able to get through the cam break-in tomorrow, maybe go do a shakedown run or two, and then that should give us most of early Friday to go out and actually try to get the rings settled in a little bit and stuff like that before we actually have to be out at the track. Still got to try to figure out something to do with that rear window. Hopefully the parts for that are going to show up tomorrow, otherwise not really sure what we're going to do for that, but maybe we'll just have to come up with something, but we'll try to deal with that tomorrow. So we're back again. It's our last full day here. We've got to have this thing buttoned up and ready to go by about 5 o'clock tomorrow afternoon, so not much time left. Gonna go ahead and just try to blast through this. Gotta shuffle cars around, get this thing off of the engine stand here, back on the dolly, and we can start putting on the heads and start buttoning this up, get it ready to go back into the car. So progress is slowed to a crawl here, but time just keeps zipping on by. As you can see, I installed a new front cover there with a new front seal, but the hardware I had wasn't quite long enough where it goes from the oil pan up into the timing cover, so I had to run around trying to find new hardware for that. Finally got all that buttoned up, made sure everything under there was nice and torqued properly. Went through all of the mains and connecting rods again, double checked all their torque settings, put the oil pump in here, got the oil pan on. As you can tell, I mean, no rebuild's complete without a spray job, so gave it a little bit of color. Obviously it didn't turn out the greatest because this block was pretty dirty. Didn't really have time to clean up on it the best. I ran out of brake parts cleaner and degreaser, so unfortunately the oil pan is staying pretty dirty and grody. Not much I can do about that, but everything should be buttoned up there, so time to get this thing off the engine stand, get it onto the cradle over there. Then we can start hitting the heads and trying to get this thing ready to go back into the car. Got the engine here moved over to the dolly now. Gonna go ahead, clean up on these mating surfaces a little bit, try to get this head surface just a little bit cleaner than this. Then I'll go ahead and wipe down the bores, blow them out with air, make sure there's no debris, nothing like that in there. Oil them down one more time, and then we'll get those heads bolted on here. Slowly starting to look like an engine again. Got the heads just sitting on there, need to come around, torque them all in place. Set the intake on there just in case I drop something, it doesn't fall down into the galley. Get lost down below, so gonna go ahead and knock all that out, and then we can start getting the lifters in here, start working on all the valve train geometry, and go from there. Progress is slow but steady. Got the driver's side head here all torqued down. Takes quite a while to go through and get the thread sealant on all of them, then go through all 3 stages of torquing them down, but we are making progress. Gonna go ahead and knock out that driver's side. Probably start working on the accessories up there, get the water pump back on there, the harmonic balancer, pulleys, start getting some of that stuff ready, and then we'll probably take care of the valve train last, get all that on there, and then we'll glue the intake manifold in place and see if we can't get this thing back in the car at least by tonight, if not running. Time is definitely slipping away on me though. I've just been chipping away at things here. I've been on the phone a bunch and on Marketplace as well, trying to get this window situation sorted. I was very adamant I needed that window here, the Lexington window kit here this week when I ordered it last week. I was promised it would be here, and it's looking like it's not going to get here till mid next week, so Very frustrated about that. Hit up a couple leads for a glass window on Marketplace, just waiting for a response there. Hopefully we can get something in. I think if I just clean up on the channel, there's enough solid material there that I think I can just glue another glass one in place and it'll hold up just fine. Get that hole plugged and it'll be good enough for what we're doing until I can get back there and do real rust repair. But here on the engine front, got all the valve train assembly in here. Went with my Summit roller rockers. Had these from the L78 build, but when I bought those 215 heads, they had nicer comp rollers. So we'll just use those for the L78. These are being unused. They'll be just fine on here. Got all the preload set. If anybody was curious on the lifters I'm using, going with the 812D by Comp Cams. Supposed to be their diamond-like coating, which is apparently the new latest and greatest coating for flat tappets. They almost go as far as saying you don't even need to do the break-in period. They're that good, allegedly, but we're gonna do it anyway, just to err on the side of caution. And I'll report back on how those go, but took me a while to get it all set up because I go through and do it the old-fashioned way, the exhaust open, intake closed method. Pretty bad at keeping track of like which valves kind of correlate to all the other ones at the same time. Was never very good at doing it that way, so I just did it the old-fashioned way. That way I know everything's correct. I got the intake manifold here bolted on, got it glued in place as well. Got two bolts here that give me troubles. Got one right here where the head kind of gets into the casting. Another one right back there behind the heat riser for the choke. Same kind of thing. Gonna see if I can find some smaller headed bolts, get those in there, but that's really been the only kind of headaches along the way here. So probably gonna go ahead, see if I can get this thing ready to go back in the car. Gonna probably take a break here. My back is just absolutely killing me. Get some ibuprofen. Maybe I'll try to get this in there tonight. Otherwise, I'm just gonna have to pick it up first thing in the morning. Try to just finish this up. It's not looking good for making it out to the track with all the delays and other things going on, but pretty spent for today. I don't even think I have transmission fluid on hand to fill up the torque converter either, so just been a bit too chaotic here trying to get down to the wire, and it does not look like we're gonna make it. Unfortunately, I was just a bit too wore out last night to make any further progress, so got an early start this morning. Been running around a lot, just picking up the last minute items we'll need, buttoning up a couple of the small little things here that have been just a little bit of a headache. So got the front crank bolt installed down there. Came back up here, swapped out this bolt for the one that has the other threaded side there for our alternator bracket. Got the plugs installed on the manifold here, coolant elbow. For the bolts that were giving me issues, I had some of these stainless steel Allen just button head screws. Got that installed here in the front, worked out perfectly up there. The one in the back there, you can see it's got just a little bit of space underneath it. It's hitting the side of the casting. I mean, it does torque down as it should, but I'd really like it if that'd be on there flush. Not a big fan of it just hitting the side, so might try to get the Dremel out or something like that, grind on that just a little bit, make a little pocket or something like that over there. See if I can get that to sit flush. Another issue we've got here is our vacuum tree. The port right here, unfortunately, everything just kind of hits the block, so I wouldn't be able to put it in there and actually spin this around. So that's a bit of a problem. Got to try to figure out some kind of solution to that, but we can take care of that a little bit later. Got the engine here all full of oil. Got a throwaway oil filter on here, since we'll probably just get this thing through break-in and run it for 30-40 minutes or so. Then we'll drain everything, check for sparklies, that sort of stuff. Get it all nice and cleaned out, and then just put some nice oil in here after that. But I'll probably prime on the system just a little bit. I'm not gonna go overboard where it's just pooling up here in the heads, everything else. Trying to follow the instructions I got with the lifters. They basically say to just kind of prime on the pump, don't go too crazy with it. So I don't want to wash away any of that assembly lube that's on the cam and the lifters. So other than that, I think we should be pretty near ready. So probably just gonna put the valve covers on, get this thing up in the air, and we'll start wrestling with this and try to get this thing back in the car. I've just been taking care of the last few things here in the engine bay. I've got my new stainless steel transmission cooler lines temporarily in place. I need to bolt them on down there to transmission, but can't get under there to remove the old ones just yet because all of the boards for the pit are what's holding up the transmission. As you can see, got the nice new little green monster installed there. Torque converter from Freak Show Performance. Huge thanks to them for being able to get that thing out to me on time. They definitely delivered on their promise. I caught a little bit of flack from some of you for going with a quote-unquote non-name brand converter. I did a ton of research out there, and like most of the TCIs, even some of the ATIs as of late, haven't been that great, especially the lower budget type. I was really planning on going with the Hughes GM35. Most of the reviews out there, even for relatively new, are pretty good, but a lot of people were saying they have pretty excessive slip in the upper RPM bands. That was kind of the trade-off. So I was talking with some people out at the track the last time, and a couple have recommended the Freak Show already before that. So called them up, spoke with them, read a ton of great stuff about them online as well. They were able to kind of custom put this together for what I was planning on doing with the engine here. So this thing should be somewhere around like 350, 360 horsepower, maybe around like 425 foot-pounds of torque. Somewhere in that vicinity. I also told them my plans for the L78, so we kind of struck a midway point there. They should have a stall of around 3,200 RPM, somewhere in that vicinity. They pretty much set it up for the weight of the car, the gears, tires, everything else. So this should be pretty good, definitely better than what we had. So again, a big thanks to them for getting that out to me. I think that's pretty much it here in the engine bay. We should be ready to get this engine in here and start buttoning things up, and definitely tired of looking at it just sitting on the dolly, so let's get to it. So as you can see, I've got the engine back down in her home. Got the engine mount bolts in there, a couple of bell housing bolts as well. Started mocking up all the accessories, got the water pump installed, temporarily installed the alternator. Got the fuel pump and a lightweight push rod installed down there. It's very easy to forget your push rods when you redo these things, so made sure I got that in there. I wanted to check the fitment of the fuel line here because I got it running up and behind the alternator, and with the quadrijet installed there, it sits a little bit higher than where it was before. So that's why I was just mocking all this up to make sure everything fits. But as I've been doing that, everything is now permanently installed more or less, other than just the alternator. So the quadrijet's all ready to go, the fuel pump, etc. So probably gonna end up keeping these ugly Chevy Power valve covers on here. I was looking at the other ones, and the flanges are a little bit beat up, and maybe that's why it was leaking so bad on me. So maybe these will seal just a little bit better. But it's about 12:30 right now. That gives us just barely 3 hours to finish everything up, get the exhaust on here, get everything bolted up, get the radiator in here, all of that stuff, and get this thing broken in, and then get on the road to the track. So unfortunately, just don't think it's gonna end up happening, and we're just not gonna have enough time to shake this thing down. So I think it's safe to say we're not gonna make it. Pretty frustrated and upset. The next test and tune is in 3 weeks out at Mid-Michigan, and it's a full month away till the next one out at US 131. So that's why I was trying desperately to get it done for this one. We would have results right away, but just did not work out in my favor with the parts showing up. They just got here too late to get all of this work done in time, but it's probably for the best. Even if we got this thing ready and everything else on such short notice and short turnaround and got back out there, we'd basically be doing our shakedown at the track, and I don't like causing problems at the track, so this will give us time now to go through, make sure there's no quirks, we ain't dripping any fluids, anything like that. We've still got to deal with the rear window on top of all of that. So I'm gonna go ahead, probably slow down a little bit now that I've got some time. I'm gonna go grab some coffee right quick, and then I'll come back and we'll pick right up. Back from my coffee break, just been continuing on with a bunch of the small things here, and I tell you what, they can be some of the most tedious, time-consuming things of the whole process. So as you see there, got a thermostat housing. Just picked that up locally at the auto parts store. Should be all right to put a new thermostat in there as well. Got the bypass hoses here all set up. Had to pull that old fitting there out of the old intake manifold. I couldn't figure out where the one that ordered went. It's probably somewhere in the house. Over here, cleaned up on this mess from the way it was last time. If you remember, the little 90-degree there was actually screwed into one of the hoses and then going into the manifold. So now I'm finally able to use those little plastic adapters I picked up last year for this. Definitely looks a whole lot cleaner. Got the crank pulleys installed down there, got the power steering brackets all on there in place. And well, apparently the power steering decided that things had been going too easily and too clean for me, And while I was playing around getting everything situated, the return line just decided to pop right off, even though the clamp on the hose was nice and tight. So not quite sure what that deal was. I kind of shoved it on there even higher this time and clamped her a little tighter, but there went my nice clean floor. I had done a really good job of not spilling just about anything this entire time so far. There was a little bit of a spill when I pulled the torque converter out, but most of it landed out on the boards that the converter was sitting on and then kind of dribbled down into the pan I had underneath. So it didn't really get onto my floor, but so much for that. Got a bit of a mess now. Other than that, I was trying to find breathers for these intake manifolds or PCV that would fit it. As you can see, the holes are kind of large on these. Everything I could find was like 1/2 inch, 3/4, and that looks almost like it's 1 inch or so. So not quite sure what I'll do about that. I tried checking at the local AutoZone when I was there, but they didn't have anything quite big enough. But just about done here up top. Just got to get the radiator in here, get the distributor dropped in there, then I can start moving under the car. We'll work on trying to fit up the headers, get the last remaining bell housing bolts in there, figure out the torque converter bolts, and hopefully got enough clearance for the starter, take care of the transmission lines, and getting pretty close. Not sure if I'm going to end up finishing it up tonight and doing the braking and stuff tonight. Got a car show tomorrow and a pretty busy weekend, so I might just push this until Sunday. Try to finish it out then when I've got a little bit more time. Pretty much all finished here on top of the engine. Got the distributor stabbed down in there. Finished putting the radiator in and the last couple of touches here up top. Still a couple of things to do, like figure out the valve cover situation. I did run into an issue with that thermostat housing. Outlet was just a little bit too small. As you can see, I got my stainless radiator lines all connected up there. Still got to cut out and get rid of the old ones once I get underneath the car, but pretty much all done up top. Still got to figure out the valve cover situation as well. I'll take care of the plug wires once the headers are in. So that's probably going to do it for tonight. I'll probably pick up tomorrow to start working on the exhaust things underneath the car, but got a car show, so it'll be pretty late in the day. Not sure if we'll be able to get the break-in done or not, but that's going to do it for today. In case any of you are wondering why I'm ditching on the Chevelle, got my 59 Fairlane here, got to get it cleaned up. It's been in storage, so she's a little bit too dirty to present, but a little sneak peek. You'll probably see this next week. Got a couple of tuning things to do. They try to put power brakes on it, stuff like that, so you'll see that again. So we're back at it here on the Chevelle, just fighting with all the frustrating last-minute things here, like the headers. So I was trying to get those things cleaned up and sanded down, and I was going to just Cerakote them, but that coating just takes way too long to sand off of there. I tried sandblasting it on the one side, and I'd be here for days trying to fight with those. So just going to ignore on that, just throwing them in there as they are. Got the driver's side on here. Did have to lift up the engine a bit to get that bolted on. But that one's on there. It's got decent clearance, got most of everything buttoned up on that side of the block. On the passenger side here, it's giving me fits. I just cannot figure out what is going on over here. But I can get it relatively lined up, but I just can't seem to tilt the flange enough to be able to get it to bolt up. It sounds like it's hitting something underneath the car, so I need to get under there and figure out what it is. Looks like it has plenty of clearance around the starter, so it doesn't seem to be that. I'm not sure why this one is hitting on something. It should have the most clearance of them all, but just fighting with these last little small things like this, just eating up a bunch of time, but hopefully we'll be able to get this thing fired up soon. I finally managed to twist on the header in some magical way and got everything to line up, so that's now bolted in place. Starting to work underneath the car now, trying to get the exhaust system fit up, so I'll take you under there and show you where I'm at thus far. So here's the situation I'm up against. We've got our muffler here, we've got the U-bolt over it, we've got our little bracket there for the U-bolt, and we've got the two nuts started. Now the other pipe will come through the center here, and then this whole thing crushes down, but I also need to be able to run these U-bolts into my hangers behind me. The problem is I've got these finger tights, and on each side here, the threads are only about halfway started in the bolts. So as soon as I introduce the thickness of that bracket, there is just obviously not enough thread to even get it started. Now on the other side, I was able to tighten everything up, kind of pre-crush the end here, clamp all this down to try to squeeze it, and that gave me just enough thread to get it started over there. On this side, it's not been working out for me, so just extremely frustrated. I mean, this week has already gone terrible enough, and then to just be fighting with stupid things like this, it's just, I don't know what it is about exhaust, but every single time I order a kit, things just always go absolutely terribly wrong. So a big F- here to pipes. They're kind of ranking up there with MagnaFlow at this point in time. Gonna probably run to the hardware store, see if I can just find longer U-bolts or something, and it's not looking good for getting this thing going this week. It is late Sunday. I'm already out of time, and we're still fighting with exhaust here, let alone everything else we need to button up. So it's going to keep plugging away, but my motivation is below zero at this point. So the exhaust system is now completely in the car. As you can see, going all the way up to the headers. Now most everything in here is just kind of loose at the moment, and missing some hardware here at the front. So don't have any of the front here clamped into place, really just kind of loosely sitting there. That's why it's sagging towards the middle. It should tuck up a lot closer to the floorboards, but if we come up here, these Summit headers actually fit pretty well for the most part. There's plenty of room over there around the starter. Got a lot of room over here around the oil filter. Kind of banged on it a little bit as I was getting it in there, but other than that, pretty decent space. Just barely clears the proportioning valve over there. So seems to fit in here pretty well. But this pipe system, you know, probably wouldn't have been that bad if they would have actually given me all the hardware that I needed, and the correct hardware at that. But it's in here, so I think we might be able to call this done for now. At least enough to get us through startup. Might come and tighten up just the fronts there at the collectors. See if I can find any other U-bolts hanging around, and maybe just get it tightened down a little to keep things quiet. But I think the last thing I need to do under here is get over there and bolt on the torque converter to the flex plate, and that should be about it underneath the car here. So I ran into one final snafu here, and that was trying to bolt the torque converter to the flex plate. As you probably guessed, the torque converter here is 7/16. Flywheel was drilled out for 3/8. So I had to go in there and drill it out a little bit, but while it's on the car, that's pretty hard to do. I had to take the starter off, get the drill up here facing back towards the rear of the car. Was pretty tight quarters, but drilled it out to 29/64, which I believe is the correct size that it should be, so it fits in there nice and tight, no wobble room, nothing like that. Just gotta get the starter back on here, but everything should finally be all ready for the initial start. As you can see, it's dark, it's downpouring. Definitely not gonna be able to do the break-in tonight, but might be able to try to at least get it fired up, check on the timing, see how close I am there, get it dialed in right quick, check for any like catastrophic leaks, stuff like that, and then shut her down. And then we'll pick her up early tomorrow morning, see if we can get the break-in done. It's late Sunday night. Usually I drop my videos Monday morning, so this one might be a little bit late if we're gonna include the break-in. I'll check the weather though, see if that's gonna be much of a problem. Otherwise, you might just have to wait till next week, but it's a bit of downpour out there and lots of thunder. Hopefully it just blows over. So we will pick it up back from the top side. So I had one last snafu to take care of there. I forgot to put the coolant sensor back in the head, so that kind of let me know in a hurry. But got all the coolant in there, double checked on the oil. We should be all set there. Was double checking that I got the timing correct. One thing I don't like about this Edelbrock intake is right here, the screw for the cap that has the little weird arm that comes out of the cap and attaches to the bottom of the body is hitting that stud there for, I guess that's the original coil location if I remember right. But yeah, this Edelbrock intake, kind of a whole handful of issues with this thing, between bolts just not fitting very well, the vacuum tree not fitting well, and now the HEI doesn't fit very well on here. So seems like the aftermarket stuff has just been killing me, but we should be ready to at least give it a try to fire up here. So I went ahead and primed on the bowl here. I put some fuel in there, so we should be all good. We shouldn't have to really crank on it much to get it to at least fire up relatively quickly. We should be all set. It's pretty late, so if it does fire up, I'm going to just try to get over here quickly, take a peek at timing, and shut it down real quick. Then tomorrow morning we'll try to get it through the break-in. Yeah, a whole lot of nothing. So it fires up, but it dies shortly afterwards, and it could be because it's a little cold out now and my fast idle isn't hooked up or isn't working correctly anymore, because another issue I discovered with this Edelbrock, which is that the little heat riser here sits awfully dang low compared to where it was before, so my little connecting rod there doesn't fit anymore. I'm not sure if that's something I just need to order up a special one for the Performer or what, but yeah, it's just another one of those frustrating issues to deal with at the moment. So it's a bit too late to really dial up the idle and try to just run it that way, so we'll just have to pick this up first thing in the morning again, try to figure out what that timing was. Unfortunately, I wasn't able to get out here fast enough and see where it was firing, but it didn't sound too bad. We just got to get it to actually run longer than 3 seconds. So we're back out here pretty early in the morning, but traffic is definitely picking up, making a lot of road noise. So let's see if we can actually get this thing to idle just a little bit longer than before. Probably have to crank up on the idle screw just to see if we can get it to hold an idle long enough for me to check the timing, and then we'll crank her up to about 2,000 RPM and see if we can get this thing through braking. All right, everything should be all set. Let's see what we get. All right, let's try this again. Slightly better. So unfortunately, my upper transmission return line there is leaking terribly. And well, I kind of wondered why it looked like they had JB welded the last one into place, and well, I'm guessing I figured out why. It definitely seemed pretty soft in there, so I was taking it pretty easy on the threads because I'm thinking that it might just be stripped out. So this throws a monkey wrench into things. Not quite sure what I'm going to be able to do about this on short notice. Well, that went catastrophically bad. I tried to tighten up on that a little bit more, and as you can see, it just went and sprayed everywhere. So at least I got the engine to run for a little bit longer than 5 seconds. Engine sounds pretty good there. Timing looks like it's pretty close to correct for right now, so it should be good enough for braking, but now I got to figure out what to do about this mess. So I'm gonna get in here, try to clean up on this. I don't know what to do about that. I'm not sure if I can find like a big fitting that fits that big outside bolt and try to like replace on that. Because as you can see, there's like the little inner bolt here, and that's what's stripped out, and then there's this bigger nut on the outside. I'm not sure if those come out or if that's kind of brazed in place or what that is, but I don't even know where I'd find a replacement at this point. Gonna have to have a think on this. And we just splattered oil. I mean, it's all the way up on the hood. That's how far it was just geysering out of there. So yeah, that made quite the mess in a hurry. Traffic is a bit nuts out here, so apologies if it's hard to hear me right now, but desperate times call for desperate measures. Kind of threaded the brass portion in there as tight as I could, then came through and soldered it in place. And then after that, I just goobered the back side of it up with as much JB weld as I could possibly get, which is essentially the way that it was when I took it apart. I'm just hoping I can get through braking. I'll probably try to find a new radiator. Don't know if there's any real way of fixing that fitting there. It didn't look like it wanted to unthread from the radiator, the big portion of it, so probably just have to find a new radiator. But I'm gonna let that set up for just a little bit longer, then we'll go ahead, see if we can get this thing to finally stay running a little bit longer. I think I finally got the RPM cranked up high enough, and hopefully get this thing through braking finally. All right, so this time I'll remember to record in between tests, so if something catastrophic happens, you'll actually get to see it this time. Nope. So we ended up springing a leak there again on the last one. It was definitely a whole lot better than it was, just a tiny little pinhole, so another layer of JB weld and maybe we're good this time. And I know what you're thinking, because I'm thinking the same thing myself right now. Why didn't you just loop the lines, you idiot? Good idea. I probably should have done that from the start. Would have been way easier than fighting with this mess right now. I don't know. Thought I could get cute and just recreate what they had on there, and maybe it would have worked and it would have been good for at least a test drive or two, but nope, that does not seem to be the case. So I'm gonna let this set up again just a little bit longer, and then we'll try this one more time, and if that doesn't work, then we'll probably try the old loop and see if I can get my JB Weld mess cleared out of there, and hopefully, just hopefully, we'll be able to get this thing to run for longer than 5 to 10 seconds. So here goes nothing. So the week of frustration is just continuing right into next week here. Just always something. Started up there, it looked like it was going good, it was going all right, so I adjusted on the timing a little bit, added just a little bit more advance. We should be right around 10-12 degrees base timing right now. So then I was trying to bring it up to around 2,000 RPM, start getting that break-in going here, see what would happen, and of course, we ended up springing another leak up here, so that's just not working out for me at all. Gonna go ahead, try to clean up all that mess now, get all that JB Weld broken out of there, and well, try to loop the lines, see if I can get that to work at least temporarily. I'll try to pick up a new radiator, but it just refuses to let me end the week. I want to get this thing through break-in, just let it run for a little bit. See how it sounds there. I've been so busy paying attention to the other things, I really haven't been able to pick up if there's any kind of engine noise. I thought I heard a little bit of a tick, but just too busy focused on other things. So gonna go ahead, try to get that taken care of, loop those lines, and we'll give this another go. All right, so now I've got the lines looped here, just got the fittings pushed back, and I've got these hose clamps clamped on to right around where it gets big and the fitting kind of crushes on them, since that's kind of the widest part of the whole tube. So hopefully that'll be enough. With the way this week has gone, you never know, but we'll go ahead and give this a try. So I don't know what attempt this is, but hopefully it's the last one. Got her up around 1900, which is as high as I can get my idle screw to go. So we're just gonna let her go through break-in. All right, so we're about 5 minutes in so far. Everything seems to be going good. I've been checking for fluid leaks, checking on the temp. Everything's doing all right. We're just a touch under 2,000. You can just barely see here. But just gonna let it go for a couple more minutes, adjust, kind of rev it up for a little bit, let it sit at maybe 2,200, 2,300, somewhere on that for a couple of more minutes, and just kind of work through a couple of variable RPMs here as it goes through break-in. But so far so good. So things are going pretty good so far. We're right around 8-10 minutes. That squeal you hear is from my power steering pump. I forgot to top it off. I'm looking for some fluid. I'm gonna try to get that topped off. It just started doing that a minute or two ago. But everything else is going pretty good. Got a little bit of a leak there underneath, probably at one of the transmission lines where it goes into the transmission, but I need to find me some power steering fluid here quickly. So I just got back from picking up some power steering fluid here, and I've kind of mentioned this a number of times before, but just how unsafe this highway is here. And not after just while I was filling up the power steering fluid, there was a pretty bad accident right out front here. So got what appears to be a Jeep down over in the ditch just right over here. Don't want to be too nosy of a neighbor, but I always talk about how people just come flying through here doing 70-ish at times. That's why I'm always a bit weary pulling out of here, especially my Model A's. And usually 2-3 times a year I end up with people in my trees down here, or this time down in my ditch. But seems like everyone's out and about and moving around and okay. Emergency services are on the way, so we'll just let them do their thing. So we have made it through break-in. I went ahead and shut it down here just so I can check on all the fluids, everything else afterwards. We did have another transmission fluid leak. I think it was coming from the lines where they go into the transmission itself. So I'll have to get down there and tighten up on those. It was pretty slow, but it was a fairly steady drip. I got the drain pan under there, so I, of course, made another mess. But I was topping off the fluid as we went and checking on that. But I'm gonna check the engine oil right quick, see how that's looking. Didn't see any kind of leaks from there. I've got a 195 thermostat in here, and it just stayed a rock solid temperature through all of that testing. So made my way underneath the car now, and we can take a peek at the exhaust system under here. I did tighten things up. I got that cross pipe tucked up a little bit tighter towards the body, so it's pretty much the same level as like the outlets there from the headers. So it's probably about as high as it'll go. Not too bad. You can see I didn't do a great job with the mufflers. I got this one kind of angled up this way, and this one over here is angling down, so I can probably clean up on that at some point in time, but I was getting pretty frustrated with that and just rushing through things. But didn't sound like it had too bad of leaks. It was kind of hard to tell just being jammed here in the garage, but gonna make my way forward here, try to get up to those transmission lines where they go into the transmission, just try to tighten on those a little bit more, see if that's where the leak was coming from. I didn't notice any other leaks. I think we got like the valve cover seals taken care of. Didn't notice anything dripping out of those. Didn't notice the oil pressure sender leaking at all. So I think the engine itself was great. So it seems I'm a decent engine builder, but anything that goes on the engine or related to anything other than the engine just did not seem to work out for me this week. So let's make our way forward. So you can kind of make out how it got all over on that header there. And you can see transmission fluid just dangling off the bottom of the pipes there. Up here you can just barely make out the fittings, and there's a little bit of fluid on those, so I'm gonna try to tighten down on those a little bit more, see if I can get that taken care of. Other than that, I didn't really notice any other leaks. Looks like we got a little bit of perhaps oil right there on the back of the pan. I'll see if I can track that down as well, but other than that, not too bad. All right, so still a bit of excitement going on over there, but in the meantime, let's go ahead and just finish up on this so I can get this video finally done. So break-in is complete. Ran it for about 25 minutes there. If you heard a high-pitched whine and squeal, I forgot to fill up my power steering after it dumped out, so that's what that was. So I got that taken care of, and while I was filling that, that's when that accident happened. And of course, camera wasn't rolling, but you wouldn't have been able to see anything anyway. I was just kind of filling it up in the garage there and heard a couple of loud bangs and some people screaming, so glad everyone seems to be okay for that. But back here to the car, I was underneath there, got those lines tightened up. Everything looks to be good there. Just got about another half turn on those nuts maybe. I always hate playing around with those brass fittings. I like to strip, but gonna go ahead here, fire her up. She should be ready to just kind of idle on her own, and we'll just check for a couple of leaks, stuff like that. See if we got that transmission line issue taken care of. We'll just see how she idles now, since I kind of had to shut her down pretty quick the last time. So I got her fired back up here, and you can definitely tell there's a little bit more lope to that cam. Not terrible though. It's only at about 650 RPM there. We got about 12 degrees of advance in. I was checking that is spot on, so I'll lock down the distributor, but unfortunately we can't take it out for a test drive because we don't have our power brakes hooked up. We don't have the vacuum modulator connected. We got the transmission cooler bypassed. A lot of things still yet to button up. I need to get a PCV valve in here as well. But she sounds pretty dang good. Let's go back here and listen to those pipes. So obviously she doesn't sound very aggressive. This is a pretty mild cam, but not bad. Definitely sounds a lot better than that tiny 402 cam in this thing. So pretty good sound overall there. Check out our gauges in here. Everything's looking rock solid. So I got that 195 thermostat in here, and my temp is basically just sat right there at that 210 the entire time, hasn't budged. And I was measuring around, and it's pretty much 195 everywhere I measure, so we should be pretty good there. But she is running very good. We got her through break-in, ran her for about 25-30 minutes, somewhere around there. I varied the RPM a couple of times. I went to like 2200, then 2500, then back to 2000. So very glad we made it through that without wiping out a lobe. That's usually one of the sketchiest spots, but I mean, there's still a chance when we do the actual break-in, we start driving it around, trying to get the rings to settle, that we'll just end up killing a lobe at some point. But she definitely made it through what I consider the most critical hours at this point. It sounds pretty healthy. So I mean, not bad. So that's probably gonna do it here this week, finally. I know it took me a little bit of time. I'm gonna probably get under there, check and see if that transmission line is leaking. A couple of other last minute things. Now, if anybody was curious on what the final specs were for this, I did measure out the heads. They were around 97 cc's for the chambers on the heads. So if we go based on that, 39 thousandths thickness on the gasket, 4155 bore. And if we go with the 5 cc's that everyone was saying that those pistons were, I measured them closer to like 9 or 10, but again, my measurements weren't that perfect. We should be at like 9.2 to 1 compression, somewhere around here. And we were probably only at like 7.8 to 1 before. So got a good healthy compression boost in there. We got the Edelbrock Nightmare Performer, that's just a pain in the butt. Obviously we got the headers, timing chain that's actually nice and tight, so quite a bit of hop-ups went into this thing. She should be quite a bit faster and respond a whole lot better with that Freak Show performance converter on there. But as far as plans go, the next test and tune session's 3 weeks away. We really have to make that one because the following week for the next nearest session is US 131, and that's the same weekend as the Iola swap meet, and I'll be back out at Iola looking for some parts for this. Need to get a bumper if I can find one. We need a fender, maybe a couple of other patch panels, some stuff like that. See if I can make some deals, find a few other random odds and ends. Hopefully this time we don't come back with another car, but you never know if the right gremlin pops up. I've been in the market for just a gremlin. There's a couple of them out there that have caught my eye, but hopefully not. But that's gonna do it this week. Thanks for sticking with me. Thank you all for watching, and I will catch you next week. And just in case anybody was wondering, no more leaks. Catch you next week.